I don't tell you how to be happy. I tell you why. Because that's the difference between living in a chaotic world and controlling a peaceful one within. When I was at my lowest point in life, I thought I needed to struggle even harder in order to escape the pain. Now I realize I had it backwards all along. So here's a question for you. How compelling of a case can you make that you have been oppressed? Who is the most oppressed person on the internet or in the world? If you live in a paradigm in which your fate can sometimes be explained away as bad luck or evil that's out to get you or oppression, aka if you believe in vulnerability and therefore making justifications as to why the vulnerable deserve special treatment, you are living in a paradigm of chaos. And here's the funny thing about chaos: there's no such thing as partial chaos. If you believe in chaos, if you believe that you are existing in chaos, you have zero control. None. Zip. And that's the funny thing about mental health work and coaching. Every single person I've ever met wants to feel empowered. And yet, at first, every single person I've ever met also wants to explain their justification for believing in chaos. TK, show me how to take control of my life. Show me how to feel empowered. Show me a process I can do in order to get the things that will make me feel good. And here are all my reasons why I have no control, why I feel disempowered, and why I feel badly. Are you starting to see the insanity in this condition of thinking? It's like wanting a clean room, but believing you are only capable of cleaning parts of it. The rest is out of your hands. But there is no such thing as partial chaos. There is no such thing as partial control. If you can find a specific condition in which you think that I'm wrong, then it's really the words themselves that are wrong, correct? If you can find an instance of partial control, then it's not really control at all. Your human mind is just trying to explain a perspective, a viewpoint. You aren't giving me a hard and fast law with that example. You're giving me your perspective on a situation and bending the language to help make your point. You are justifying your perspective about the situation in an effort to convince me of your stance. You've decided that your stance is right and any argument to the contrary is wrong. Justifying justice. You're looking for justice for your cause. You're looking for justice for ever having been put in that situation to begin with. You're looking to punish those who have oppressed you, to punish those who disagree with you, to punish those who stand in your way and create chaos in your experience. Now, you may be able to make a very compelling case as to why your justifications deserve respect. And, boy, oh boy, there are plenty of people in the world who may agree with you. But all you've really done by taking a stance of partial chaos, of saying I am oppressed, but by complaining about it and maybe getting enough people to side with me, I can shift the tides in my favor and restore order. By saying these things, you've really only just created a spectrum of blame. So, what is a spectrum? A spectrum is a range of possibilities. Units of measurement are spectrums, like the distance from hot to cold. Light is a spectrum, from bright to dark. Spectrums are all around us, and they govern our relationship to the physical world. How are you doing in life? How much do you love your wife? How much money do you make compared to others? Does your body look good? Do your friends like you? How do you feel each day? The answers to all of these questions would just reflect points on a spectrum of opinions. None of these answers would be law based. Laws of the universe do not adhere to spectrums, they are finite, which is why there are so few of them to begin with. We exist in a world of a few laws and an infinite amount of spectrums, because everything in this life is an observation. then an opinion, and finally it becomes a decision on how to act. Do I want to change this thing or leave it alone? Does this thing help me or hurt me? How much and why or why not? So we're really living in this spectrum soup, so to speak, right? Examining this soup is what drives all art, all creativity, all entertainment, not to mention the laws that we create as human beings, the laws in courtrooms, right? Not laws of the universe, but the laws in courts. Our relationship to science, so much more as well. We're constantly trying to measure our perceptions against what is actually happening. We want to find the distance between where we are and where we think we want to be, and then we want to figure out actionable steps to get there. Okay, great. I think you believe me and understand what I mean by spectrums. So it makes perfect sense why we'd create a spectrum of blame, right? Noticing and creating spectrums is so ingrained in you as a human being. Nobody needs to teach you to notice them. In fact, they are so normal that most people go a lifetime without ever really examining what they imply about our behavior. Most people just think, okay, I live in a world where I want to feel good. And when I don't feel good, there must be some reason why. Maybe someone is standing in my way, or hurting me, or sabotaging me, or they said a mean thing, or they ruined my day. And so, my best course of action as a person who wants to feel good is to start protecting myself from outside dangers. I'm going to learn to fight. I'm going to learn to gossip. I'm going to learn to lie or cheat or steal, all in the name of manipulating the world around me and thereby improving my place in this spectrum of emotion. Now, of course, very few people say that last part, the spectrum of emotion, out loud. It's just a known that it exists. We just feel it. We just know it innately. Nobody needs to tell you that gravity exists in order for you to feel it. You just know how it feels. And nobody needs to tell you about this spectrum of emotions you can feel in order for you to know that feeling bad feels bad. You don't need to go to school to understand that feeling bad feels bad and feeling good feels good. So, what are we talking about here? We're talking about taking things for granted. We take for granted that we live in a universal experience based on spectrums. And because we take it for granted, we also seem to miss the point of spectrums entirely. We take the secret of life for granted as well by assuming that the best way to get what you want is by going out and forcing the world to bend to your perception of the spectrum. Now, I said your perspective because all emotions are just based on your perspective of what's happening. 10 different people are going to react in 10 different ways to the exact same situation, or at least they could, which implies that the secret here was never to care about the situation. It was always to care about the emotion attached to the situation. There's no point in creating a paradigm in which you measure people's oppression and then assign rankings to it. Unless, of course, you want to feel the emotion associated with such an exercise. And that's normally what's going on. The people who clamor the loudest for justice, remember the word justifications? Those people are usually in the worst places emotionally. And they're fighting against whatever system they deem oppressive is their strategy for climbing back up the spectrum of emotions. They believe that fixing the world's problems will make them feel better, never stopping to consider that there is no, let's call it a master list of the world's problems, right? That doesn't exist. One person's problem is often another person's windfall. Have you noticed? So really, these fighters are just creating new spectrums to battle against while they try to defeat the spectrum of what? Of depression or victimization or sadness. Even listening to me speak is probably starting to sound a little confusing. Why? Because what I'm describing is confusing. It's chaotic. It's a life based in problems, problem after problem after problem, and the need to fight those problems at every turn. And when you live your life fighting against enemies that only you can perfectly define, right, that only you can really understand, then they aren't really enemies. They are figments of your imagination come to life. They are agents of chaos that you have created, and you are the victim of it. The victim of what? The victim of your own mind. So, where does this leave us? Well, first of all, there is no escaping spectrums, which means humans are always going to try to manually manipulate, fight against their worlds in order to conquer the spectrums. There's no point in telling them that they are foolish for trying to do so unless they really want to learn the truth. So, knowing we cannot defeat a spectrum because it's not actively doing anything to us except reflecting a measurement of our relationship with it, what should we do with all these spectrums? How do we overcome this world based in spectrums? We have to use them as evidence that our personal opinions don't matter in terms of rightness or wrongness. They matter in terms of emotional resonance. Life is truly only measured in terms of emotion. And emotion is something that you have control over once you decide to take control over it. We are so conditioned to exist in this world of spectrums, we think that chaos also exists as part of the spectrum. And that the way to control chaos is to control the thing that's causing it. But we've just started proving in this podcast today, in this video, why that's a fallacy. It's fallacious because it means you're measuring the wrong thing. You should be measuring what level of control over your emotions that you are exhibiting, because that is a spectrum that is actually controllable. If you are trying to measure how much chaos exists in your life outside of yourself, and then trying to measure how much force you need to muster in order to control that chaos, then all you've really admitted is that you live in a world of chaos. And now we're right back to where we started, aren't we? Living in a world of chaos. People who clamor about oppression and try to make hierarchies based on the degrees of oppression are really just exclaiming, my world is chaos. I have no real control over it. But in my ignorance of true control, I have substituted this shiny new spectrum that I have made up based on what I've seen and what I've assumed and what I've been taught and what other people on Twitter have taught me. I've come up with these ideas, and these ideas cannot be perfectly understood by anyone else because it only represents my personal opinions on the subject. That person I just described has very little chance at ever reaching true satisfaction or making lasting change in the world or fulfilling their potential. Why? Because the world around them is always in flux, which means there is enormous risk that something somewhere is going to trigger them into falling back down the spectrum towards powerlessness. It's not just a risk, it's a guarantee. The only way through this tangled web is to focus on your emotions. And that's exactly what we do here. But not in the ways you expect. I don't tell you how to be happy. I tell you why. Because that's the difference between living in a chaotic world and controlling a peaceful one within. If you enjoyed this, be sure to like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel. Leave a comment, leave a question. I'll try to answer as many as I can. If you're someone who prefers books over videos, I wrote a full-length self-development book called The Integrity Method. It's helped hundreds, maybe thousands of people with the exact kind of work that we're talking about right here. Love you guys.